Patrick Grandmaître is the first ever coach to join Greels Reels, and I am beyond thrilled to have him on. Such an incredible hockey career, lots of great stories, all the way over in Germany, all the way over on the west coast of Canada. There's just so much to unpack here. He's now coaching. He was an awesome player, national championships. It's honestly just way too much to even tell you in this intro. That's why we have a 2-hour podcast, one of the longest in Greels Reels history, and I just want to tell you, it is so important you watch the whole episode for this one. He is a very insightful man, and there's a lot of things that you can take away from outside of just the laughs. All right, I'm your host, Robert Greeley, and this is Greels Reels. Let's jump into it. Coach Grandmaître, the first staff member on Greels Reels. How's it going?
Nice. What a privilege. It's going. Just the NHL just got tentative agreement, so pretty good day for hockey people.
Yeah, good to see some games starting up again and things of that nature. I mean, let's just dive right into, your hockey career and where it all, really started, I guess, in the junior ranks with the Q. So, you make Victoriaville as a 16-year-old, and your reaction immediately wasn't for sure if you were going to go or whatnot. So take me through that.
Yeah, it was an interesting process, sort of say, or decision that I did not get the chance to make. But so my 15-year-old year, I played midget AAA, and that was kind of my real first year of being 100% in hockey, being at the same school as all my teammates, playing for the Gatineau Intrepid in the midget AAA league. And kind of our claim to not fame, or we were the year after the Daniel Briere, his year. They won everything. They won the Air Canada Cup, barely lost any regular season games. It was the first year of the existence of this midget AAA franchise. And then I come in the second year of the franchise, and we don't make playoffs. So, but nonetheless, I had a blast. Ended the year with a letter on my jersey as a 15-year-old and a lot of responsibilities, and got drafted to the Victoriaville Tigers. And that was a bit of a, I didn't know. I didn't know when I was going to go, if I was going to go, being an underager. And then, show up at training camp. And it was a transition year for the Victoriaville Tigers. New coaching staff, new GM, kind of wanted to change the culture and everything. And even at training camp, they traded out a lot of their 18 and 19-year-olds, really went for a young team. And, next thing you know, they bring me in the office and they tell me I've made the team. And my reaction was like, let me think about it. I called my dad, and I was like, Dad, I want to go back home and play my second year midget AAA as a 16-year-old and, maybe dominate and all that. My dad said, no, phone call's over. You're staying. Bye. So that was it. So I was playing a 16-year-old in the Quebec League.
Has your dad let you know all these years later, like why that answer was so swift with him that you're staying?
You know what? It's not something that we've talked about later on in life, but now that I've been in hockey long enough and that kind of stuff, I can see why he said that. Like it's a privilege to play as an underage in a high level. I like the CHL, and my dad was always pushing me to push my own limits, and he knew that for my own development, I would probably progress more by playing as a 16-year-old in the Quebec League than coming back and playing a second year of midget AAA.
And I mean, it definitely worked out. That first year, you found yourself on the all-rookie team in the Q. Take me through that season.
Yeah, I was very lucky and fortunate that because, as I said, we new coach, new management, young team. They had a player. His name was Daniel Corso. Ended up being a St. Louis Blues second, third, fourth round pick. Really good player, very offensive player, highly skilled. And ended up that I just played myself into his centerman role. So I ended up as a 16-year-old playing on the first line, first power play, huge responsibilities. And I tagged along a really good hockey player, ended up getting a lot of points and assists from him driving our line, and me being able to keep up. And probably my best strength is my playmaking ability. So I was moving the puck quick, wasn't keeping it too long on my stick, and just kept feeding Daniel. And he ended up having a long career, and I think he's in his second year now as an assistant coach in the Q with Baie-Comeau. So yeah, he helped me big time.
With such a young core, as you go by year after year and you start getting playoff experience as well, what's the mindset each new season where it's, one more year with this group, one more year with this group, and you're really trying to go for something special?
Yeah, at first we were that young team and inexperienced team, and my first year, our captain was PJ Stock. He instilled a lot of the character in our team, in our young team. Never back down attitude and all that kind of stuff. And our coach was a very fiery guy. Had some good battles with Michel Terrien when he was in Granby and all that. But yeah, we kind of, we grew into it, that young core. And unfortunately, by my fourth year, that was the build up to our best team. An unfortunate accident happened to one of our starting goalie, Mathieu Garon. He was might have been the first or second round pick in the NHL. Mm-hmm. Probably top 3 goalie in the league. He was kind of him and Luongo were always the 2 best goalies. And unfortunately, right before playoffs, he had been with his girlfriend forever, and her father was an important part in his life, ended up passing away. And they were from pretty far away, and Matthew ended up leaving. I think we were, tied 2-2 in a series, and he just had to go and take care of that side of things. And we all understood, and we went to the wake as a team and stuff like that. But Matt just had to stick around, and it was a huge loss for our team, and we just didn't have the depth in goaltending to kind of fill that spot. So that was our year. We had made a lot of trades to kind of stack up, as a Quebec League does pretty often. And unfortunately, we didn't get through as far as we wanted.
And I guess it's not even much of a silver lining the next year because you're getting shipped to the Ramparts. But, you get named the captain, so a lot of leadership right away.
Yeah.
I guess, go through that whole transition with me and the process of just your mindset.
Yeah, no, it was an interesting process. After my fourth year in Victoriaville, where I loved that city. I had so many friends, and my billet was my second family. It was just part of me at that point. But we knew we were, that crop of 19 and 20-year-old. We're a very old team. We're all moving on. My overage year was going to be a rebuild year. So, to be honest, we didn't went all out in asking a trade, but we kind of forced a trade at the draft. In hindsight, if I look back at it, me and my family, we should have done it differently. We should have started the year in Victoriaville and asked, I'll give you right up till Christmas. And then at Christmas, if we're not contending, I'd like to move on. The reason I say that is it left a bitterness in the way I exited that franchise. And to this day, that's probably what my one regret from the Quebec League. Ended up getting traded to the Quebec Ramparts for quite a bit, for Antoine Vermette, for a European pick, a lot of money. So for an overager, they ended up, Victoriaville got a lot, and they probably, the way they orchestrated that trade set them up for their President's Cup 2 years later, where they were really good. So I ended up with the Quebec Ramparts, and we were a stacked team. We had, I think, 4 first-round picks to the NHL in there, a couple second-round picks, notably Mike Ribeiro, Eric Chouinard. Our 2 European defensemen were first-round picks. Our goalie was a World Junior goalie, a kid named Wallet. Stacked team, lots of personalities. And the big thing is that I kind of came in, and within a couple of weeks, 3 weeks, coach brought me in the office and said, hey, I want you to be the captain. I want you to lead this group. A lot of personalities. We need you. We brought you here for this. I was up for a challenge. It was a different challenge where a big city in Quebec City, it was hard to get the team together as much as we did it in Victoriaville, being such a small town. it'd be one phone call and we'd had, 3/4 of the team at the bowling alley or going to play pool, and we're always together. Whereas in Quebec City, everybody spread out everywhere. So it was a bit harder for the team bonding side of things. And again, lots of huge personalities. A big piece that hurt us that year was, how things happen. Rob Brindamore, I think, shattered his foot or ankle right at the end of training camp with the Philly Flyers. And Simon Gagne ends up making the NHL as a 19-year-old and does not come back to our team. He was a World Junior standout, and we know the rest is history. His career was unbelievable. But for us to not get him back, I think we were the best team in the Q. But without Simon, it brought us just a bit back down to some of the other top-end teams. So great year. Quebec City is a phenomenal city. Really enjoyed it. Great learning experience for sure.
With that lineup that you just mentioned, is it, looking back on it now, even more prideful in the fact that, the coaching staff saw you as a captain for being their guy?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, at that time, I'm 20 years old. I'm becoming a young adult, young man. I just saw it as, hey, they like my style or they like my demeanor and all that. But looking back at it, yeah, with the people around that dressing room, the head coach was Guy Chouinard. He's one of the best coaches in the history of the Q. His son, Eric Chouinard, was a first-round pick to Montreal. And then for them to nominate me, it's great. Huge responsibility, though. I'm the type of guy that likes to take a lot on his shoulders and wants everything to go well. So played with a lot of stress that year, to be honest. It was an adventure every weekend. Especially when Mike Ribeiro got traded to our team. Man, what a guy. So a lot of responsibilities, a lot of drama on that team for sure. But hey, what a team we had.
Yeah. And I mean, you definitely took it head on because it didn't slow you down in terms of the point wise. I mean, you go and have a back-to-back 100-point season in the Q. What does it take to have consistency at that level to that point where, you're putting up triple digits for points?
Yeah. Major junior is a bit of a grind if you think about it, like the age that you are playing that many games. You factor in, preseason, regular season, playoffs. Some guys are almost playing 100 games a year. And I remember, there's not one year when I went when I played that I did not go to school. So I was always a pretty much a full-time student while I was doing it. But a phenomenal time. As far as my production, I think what was key for me was my work ethic, my determination. Skill level, I considered myself an okay skill guy. My skating was okay as well. Wasn't bad, wasn't great. But I think I relied a lot on moving the puck quickly, not keeping it too long, and getting my nose dirty and not being scared of that side of thing. I felt like I could play with anybody, either some top end guys or some guys that just wanted to work and grind. So I feel like I was pretty versatile as a player, and it helped me out tremendously to play with some really good players.
Yeah, and that the Q during that time as a whole was just filled with exceptional players. Looking back on it all now, you've mentioned Luongo, Briere, all in that era of play. Who are some guys that you were like, man, these were competitors, and it really was a privilege, playing either against them or with them?
Yeah, I always say when people ask me that question, like probably for me the best player, it was Brad Richards. I mean, Vinny LeCavalier was good. He was big and skilled, but felt like my style. I can kind of hang with him, but for some reason, Brad Richards was so lethal with his shot. Not great speed, and I think you saw that at the NHL level. That once his kind of his prime hit, it faded pretty quickly because of his natural speed. But Brad's hockey sense and his shot was unreal. Mike Ribeiro was just unreal as well. I mean, you look at you look at the end of my statistics with the Quebec Ramparts, yeah, I hit triple digits, but before he got that, I don't think I was on pace for that. And man, once he got there, I had the privilege to play on his line, and Mike was like, just give me the puck and go to the net. I was like, sure, man. And that's what I did. Mike just had the ability to hold on to it and fool everybody, and find people. Probably the best goalie for me was Matthew Garon. Luongo was really good, but I got to go with my ex-teammate. There's some good players, man. Holy smokes. It's when you go through it. Alex Tanguay was there. Some legit point producers. So it's pretty neat to have played against those guys.
And I guess, cluing up the Q chapter, like every OA, you start making the decision, okay, am I going to go and try and land a pro deal? Am I going overseas? Am I going to look at universities? I was reading an article today, and, you kind of had your mind made up, but a certain coach, really solidified that for you. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I'm fortunate enough that Alain Vigneault lives very close to my parents' place. Still to this day, it's one of his home bases in the off season, and I wouldn't say I had a close relationship with him, but a good relationship. I was older, but at times I babysat his daughters, and he's always chatted with my dad and stuff like that. But it came time to kind of make that decision of am I going to the East Coast Hockey League, or do I go to school? And it's kind of weighing both. I think I knew inside of me what I had to do. My parents were really leaving it in my hands. They didn't want to influence that decision. But yeah, one conversation in Alain's driveway, just said, "Hey, how's it going?" And started chatting and asked him what he thought. I think he had coached against me a bit when he was with the Quebec franchise at the start, the Arfan Beauport. So he kind of knew my style and knew who I was and knew my family. And that's what he said. He said, "Pat, I know you. I know your family. I know the type of people you are. It's probably best that you go to school, get your degree, and then try the minor pro circuit." And tremendous advice. I ended up following that and ended up going pro after anyways, and having a great experience, but with zero pressure on my shoulders because I had 2 degrees in my back pocket, right? So great advice and appreciate it.
And yeah, that advice took you to STFX. When you're going through the recruitment process, what were things that you were looking for, I guess, and what were teams kind of showing you, and why was it, the X-Men is what you wanted to be a part of?
Yeah, it's different now. Now that I'm a coach and I'm the recruiter, I look back at the recruiting process of me going to STFX, and I sometimes tell that to the recruits that I'm trying to get is that, I played till the year 2000, basically. Cell phone when I was an overager. So it was basically phone calls, voicemails, and then paper mail. So back in that day, I get through the mail these big envelopes with the academic programs and a letter from the coach. And then you kind of, that's where you start reading through. Did not have a personal computer at home. So it's not like I was going on the internet and finding some stuff out on these schools. So it was basically, reading through the program that I got, and then phone calls with the coaches. And that hasn't changed, where we talk to a lot of recruits. And the other thing that hasn't changed is you talk to people that are playing for those teams, and you build that kind of relationship. And sometimes you have some former teammates that are playing at the schools that interest you. And that was the case for me. The late Dean Stock, so PJ Stock's brother, he was a huge influence in me going to STFX. I had played with Dino for 2.5 years before he got traded. And he was a major part on kind of convincing me to go to STFX. And my big point is my English was good. I was fortunate enough to pretty much was raised in a bilingual family. My mom's side is Anglophone, so my English was pretty good, but I wanted to immerse myself in an English community when I went to school, just to make sure I took all my class in English. I spoke English pretty much 100% of the time, just to make sure I'm keep improving that side of my own personal development. So I knew I wanted to go out east or be in a Ontario English community type of thing. So short list was Acadia, St. Mary's, STFX, and a bit Ottawa, just because it was at home. But deep down, I knew I was going to go out east.
And yeah, you get there. Tell me about the first week on campus. New kid on the block.
Yeah, no. The funny thing is, I decided, and Danny Flynn was the coach at STFX, and he's a legend of his own. And I remember in the recruiting process, the recruiting trips are a big thing, right? Mm-hmm. And Danny kept saying, hey, if you want to come recruiting trip, fair enough. You can do that. But if you don't, I'll save that money that I would provide you for the flights and all that, and I'll use that to help you out in other ways. So, you'll probably gain more in doing that. And I was, fair enough. But the first week I got STFX, I kind of understood why he did not want me to go and visit, especially in the summer when there's no students there and none of the players are there. It's pretty dead at summertime. And I decided very late. I think I decided in June or something like that. So I understood pretty quickly why he didn't want me to go down there. But yeah, at the time I was dating. I was in a long-term relationship with a Victoriaville girl. I think we were in our 6th year together. So she was coming with me for that first year. And we get there. We had a 2-bedroom basement apartment in a hockey house. So me and this young French girl doesn't speak English at all. We had this 1-bedroom apartment in the basement with 5 other hockey players upstairs. I got there, and another funny story about Dean Stock is we get there, and my girlfriend at the time, she's like, what is this city? Like, this is a dump. This is bad. I was like, hey, we haven't seen it all, so don't worry. I get to the apartment, and I asked Dino, how's it going? I said, hey, do you mind giving us a tour of the city? And Dino's like, he's got this chew in his mouth, and he's wearing his boxers basically. And he's like, Patty, you seen the McDonald's yet? Seen it Tim Hortons? Yeah, we saw it Tim Hortons. How about you seen the campus? Yeah. That's fucking it, Patty. That's all we got here. It's like, oh my God. Yeah, the girlfriend started crying that night for sure. But I think within a month, I was in love with the aura, the culture. Within a month, I was fine. The girlfriend, she wasn't fine the whole year. She wanted out.
Yeah, no, the East Coast definitely takes some getting warming up to, for sure. I mean, I've heard that a lot from I never went to Memorial, obviously, but all my high school buddies did, and so I meet people who have come from away to hang out at MUN, and yeah, it always takes about a month if you're gonna love it to really warm up to it and live the
yeah. And I'm not talking bad against STFX and Antigonish. It's way nicer nowadays too. The downtown's amazing. Campus has changed, brand new rink, you name it. But back in 2000, it wasn't the same.
Oh, that's awesome. I mean, hey, you definitely took the ball and definitely ran with it. I mean, bunch of national experience and, getting to play on that level, a couple silver medals, and then, you eventually finally cap it off with a championship as well. Take me through the play style and the competition and, going from that rookie who's just what have I got myself into to, hey, now I'm the captain with a national championship.
Yeah. The transition was really quick. What I found in the first, for university hockey, your first month and 2 weeks, sometimes it's called training camp. But you're going to classes, you're training together, you're barely playing any exhibition games. So you get to practice a lot against your own teammates. And at that time, our captain my first year was Carl Beaudoin, and Bodie was a no-nonsense type of physical defenseman. He had been to the Memorial Cup with the Olympics, the Hall Olympics back in the day, a great leader, and man, was he intense in practice. So I feel like after that month and some, I was ready to play just from grinding it out against my own teammates. That's the thing with university hockey. You practice way more than you play. So I felt very prepared coming in. And again, I was very fortunate. My first year, great opportunity. I was playing with Yannick Evola and Guy Larange, 2 Quebec League stars that were producing at a crazy rate at the U Sports level. And yeah, as a first-year player, to be put with the top 2 guys right away, helped me a lot, first power play and everything. And we had a really dangerous team. Probably not the best team on paper, but we could pretty much do it all. Not the most consistent year, but then we really got it done in the playoffs and got all the way to the finals, and both teams got a berth to nationals. And we went to nationals. We were the last seed because we were on a kind of on a bye or a wild card. And our first game, we beat Alberta, number one ranked team. And you lose one game over there, you're done. So then we win our second game, and then we go to overtime. And I think it was double overtime or triple overtime against UQTR. And to this day, I still have a dream of again, the late Dean Stock going around the net, and Tualagia's goalie was stuck on his post, and he had a wraparound. I was right in front of the net looking at it, and just the way you wrap around your stick, his stick just hit the post and wasn't able to really finish his tuck, and the puck just went right across the crease. I had my arms up. It was crazy, and I still have a dream. It comes up pretty frequently, but ended up losing in overtime, heartbreaking. It was fun. It was fun as an underdog team. Me as a first-year player, our best player, Yannick Evola, had a broken jaw, could not play in the tournament. Like, nobody thought we'd do anything. So getting over there, great experience too in leadership. Remember the bus driving into Kitchener, and it's my first nationals. Playoff success wasn't great for me in the Q, so it was the first time that I was really on a roll in the playoffs. And at the time, right, no phones again. So what we had, I had gotten a camera at the grocery store that you spin the wheel and you take a picture, right? Those cardboard cameras and bus, and I'm cranking, I'm taking pictures. And a couple of the other guys and our captain just stood up in the bus and started yelling at everybody. He said, "Put those fucking cameras away. It's not a fucking field trip." And you're just running into us. And he really set the tone. It was like, oh man, this is business. So a great leadership opportunity. So first year nationals, silver medal. I thought it'd be easy. The next year, I was nominated captain my second year. And at times during that year, leadership was getting questioned on our team. So I felt like I wasn't maybe pulling my weight, or it was hard, or maybe the C getting put on my shoulder as a second year guy probably roughed up a few feathers with the senior players. So that second year was not great, but we had a huge recruiting class that set us up well for a third and fourth year, and went back to nationals, lost in the finals again against UQTR, old nemesis. And then, you set up that fourth year for us. I knew the summer before. I was telling everybody here in Gatineau that we were going to win. I was telling everybody in that off season, I was training. I was like, man, we're going to win it this year. I just knew it from day one. And that team had somewhat of that calmness, that poise the whole season. Never phased. We could play any style. We could play physical, defensively, offensively, you name it. And what a team that was. Great memories of the whole run, right? The season, the playoffs, the nationals, and of course, winning in overtime. Still get the chills just thinking about that moment, the jumping on the ice and that elation. It's, what a thrill.
Did you dare take another photo when you got chewed out on a bus?
No, didn't bring any of those. But to tell you that, like, I still remember to this day that experience. And when we went back now the third year, the second nationals that I go, now I'm captain of the team. I'm thinking about that stuff before we're going to nationals. If I see some of that crap, I'm gonna pull a Bodie. I'm gonna yell in everybody's face, and this is business. I was ready, but I didn't need to bring that. Boys are already dialed in, but that's what makes leadership amazing, right? You take stuff you learn from your childhood, from your experiences on and off the ice, and you become a better leader every year because you just learn from different experiences. So felt like, my third time at nationals, I was really ready. I felt like our team was ready. The stars were aligned, and ended up winning the whole thing. It's pretty neat.
Staying on that theme of leadership, who would you accredit to being those guys that you've really learned from? Because, you've worn the C a few times, and now obviously, your role as a head coach. lot of leadership required on that resume.
Yeah. There's one guy. It's plain and simple. It's my father. My dad was also pretty much a captain everywhere he's been. He ran his own business. He took over the family business at a young age, and just his style. He's more of a in-your-face type of guy. More of a, if you don't go my way, I'll tell you. But for me, I ended up learning a lot because of his style, right? He didn't take 1 second to wait to tell me something when he felt like I wasn't either acting the right way, wasn't being the person I should be, wasn't working as much as I should be working, wasn't passing enough, or you name it, or questioning me. Hey, seeing this, and I don't know, your team is so down on the bench, and why aren't you doing anything? I would say, well, I was yelling on the bench. He's like, no. Like, why aren't you doing something on the ice to wake them up? You know, like, and it's stuff that you're 14 years old. Like, you don't know, but if someone's teaching you that at that young of an age, it's a crazy good experience. And just seeing my dad too operate his business, how he treated his employees, how he was first there, he was the last one leaving, cared about people. He was always the one too organizing a lot of things around our family and running the family cottage and all that kind of stuff. Just taking responsibilities on his shoulder and doing it the right way. And if you don't like it, don't complain, do it. So it's one guy. And then of course, learning from all the captains I played with, all the coaches I had, or the bad people I had too. Some people, they're leaders and they're not, and they're terrible at it. So you don't learn and do the same thing as they do. You learn and say, I'm not going to do that. That doesn't work, or that's stupid. But you use that negative experience and turn it into a positive. So my dad, and then the rest.
I'm curious, what was the family business?
It was a home heating business. So it's kind of died down now in the sense that my grandfather, paternal grandfather, he had this business of delivering oil to houses in Ontario and Gatineau. Most of the people for a long time heated their house with oil and with diesel and all that kind of stuff. So they had 3 trucks, and they delivered fuel to houses or to companies or stuff like that. And they fixed air conditionings and heating systems. So neat story about my grandfather is that he was part of this business with his brother. And, he didn't like the way his brother was running the business. And he, I don't know if it was shady stuff or I don't know what it was, but at a certain point, my grandfather decided to just leave everything, lose all the money he had invested. And he just left everything to his brother and then went on his own. But he left with all the not the contact. Yeah, the contacts. So all the clients he left. Back in those days, everything was paper, right? So he left all the boxes of every address and client that he had, took that, called them all and said, hey, my brother is going to keep the business going, but I'm going to start my own business on my own side. If you want that. So a couple of people gravitated towards him, ended up doing very well. Father worked for him. And then my dad bought my grandfather when my grandfather was retiring. So great story. My dad sold right at the right time. He had a hunch that things were changing. He sold right at the good time where people were going natural gas or electric. So it turned out well.
Okay, yeah, no, I was curious because I was also going to ask if you had felt any pressure or, obligation to, take over the family business one day.
Yeah, it's a great question. I remember, so my dad being so busy at the winter time, he really came down to STFX, and it's pretty far to drive or fly and everything. So, but one of the occasions that he came to see me play at STFX, I remember going for dinner, and my undergrad was human kinetics. So I remember my dad asking me, he said, hey, I'm getting to the point where my dad's young, like he's 60, I'm 41. So my dad's just turned 63. So my dad's pretty young. So back in that age, he was asking me about my future plans with my kinetics degree. And he said, listen, if you do, I could see this working, that by the time you're old enough that I could sell to you. And I knew I did not want to do that. Nothing against what my dad did and how he did it. I just love sports too much. Loved leading a group. Love kids too. Honestly, I feel very natural around kids and teaching kids, stuff like that. So I knew I wanted a phys ed degree, and I wanted to stay in sports and hopefully stay in hockey. And turned out right.
Yeah, it went pretty well. Now I got to ask, just because, where I'm from, you had the pleasure of playing with some legend Claremont Caribous, Stuart McRae, Dustin Russell. I mean, those guys are, for me, and I was chatting with Dustin on his episode, is just like, that's where my love of hockey and all this kind of grew, right? And being able to even, work in sport media, like that was the first team that, really embraced myself. So, I mean, what were those guys like?
Great guys. Both of them are pretty quiet.
Mm-hmm.
Dusty was such a hard player. Like, he was, for that time, he was one of the fittest guys. Like, his shoulders being very wide and strong. Dusty would play up and down our lineup. He would play in a checking role, but sometimes he would be thrown on the first line because he could really do it all. Really good shot. Very serious guy off the ice. And he, at STFX, he had a long-term girlfriend from Newfoundland as well. And I think that she had followed him in Gatineau in the Q. So, they were together a lot. But when he had the green light to go on his own, he let her loose. So, phenomenal guy, great leader, a quiet force, I would say, about Dusty. Stewie, the neat thing about Stuart McRae is that in my overage year with the Quebec Ramparts, he had spent some time with our team, and then he ended up getting traded. And we had good chemistry the time that we played together, even though him being a young guy. Again, I felt more like a playmaker, and Stewie's a shooter. Like, he just shoots all the time. So love playing with him and finding him. The Goldilocks flying through his hair, blowing through his helmet, tall, skilled guy. We had a guy like that on our championship team that, he was playing more in a depth role on our team. So it just showed you how good we were when Stuart McRae is more in a depth role, that our lineup was so deep. So amazing guy too.
And I guess, going all the way back to that conversation in the driveway with Alain, he was almost spot on. You do, get a little bit of ECHL action before you go over to Germany. Let's, talk about the coast for that 3-game stint there before we, go overseas.
Yeah, that was neat. So my last year, we ended up losing in double overtime against UNB to kind of, end my CIS career at the time. And then not too long after that, this East Coast team calls me and says, hey, we're really hit by the injury bug, both in the East Coast and the AHL, and we need players to play this 3-game stint in Victoria, BC. And we can't have American guys. Like, we don't have time to get the visas and all that. We need Canadians. So me and a teammate of mine, Omar and Afadi, end up flying across Canada to go play 3 games in 3 nights against the Victoria Salmon Kings, I think, something like that. It was so different. We get there, we meet the team. We got one practice, and after practice, I think it was like a morning practice, and then we had the day off before our Friday, Saturday, Sunday game. And the older guys are like, "Hey, rookies, let's go rent some scooters." So we rented mopeds, and these guys were running across the city, jumping sidewalks, and we're like, what the hell's going on here? I'm just, trying to get my university degree, and these guys are flying everywhere. One of the guys almost got in a fight in traffic because I think it was Lance Galbraith. He was a 67s guy, tough little guy that was not too big, and the team bus was just stuck in traffic, and this BMW decides to go on the side street. on the side lane, basically, no cars allowed, but kid was just tired of traffic. And Lance is telling the bus driver, open the door, open the door. So opens the door. The little BMW stops right in front of it. Lance gets in front of the car, starts giving shit to the kid. He's like, you driving your fucking mom's car? Get the fuck out of here. Well, he was challenging a kid, but I was like, what's going on here? Ended up going out with the guys Thursday night before a 3-game stint. I didn't know what was going on. Ended up playing well. I had a blast. Produced as well, and they offered me to keep going with them for the rest of the seasons and playoffs. And I really wanted to just finish my degree. I had already signed in Germany, so I felt like I was in an education program with practicums and all that kind of stuff. I felt like if I go right away, it would just be a hassle to finish that stuff off the right way, and doing the graduation, all that. So I figured let's just go back and plan for Germany, the contract that I had already signed.
How you're describing those scooting sessions, I'm not surprised the team was in injury bug problems.
Yeah, and those were like the cool ones, like the Vespas, and this was the first time I saw one of those. And of course, one of the guys wrecked it. And what we had done is that guy had not purchased insurance for the scooter, but another guy did. So they ended up weaseling something that, let's say you and I go, you get insurance, I don't, I get the accident, and then we flipped it around that it was your scooter, and they were arguing with the license plate, and it ended up being okay. But yeah, what a shit show.
Oh man. Did you, what were the contract negotiations like? Were you able to, they were desperate. Were you able to, hardball them a little bit?
No, it didn't get much, but just remember, one of the things I remember, and I still talk to my teammate Omar about this, is that we were, because we played 3-3, and then both of us were going back to Nova Scotia after that, but their team was busing back to the States. So we stayed an extra night in Victoria, and we were in a okay hotel. I can't remember what the chain was, but in your room on your bed was 2 nice white bathrobes, and we thought we were the coolest guys, right? We're in university, we're graduating, we're sitting in our bathrobes, having a couple drinks before going out again. This time we went downtown to Vancouver before we're flying back, and we thought we were the 2 coolest guys. get downtown Vancouver, and there's lineups everywhere. We can't get in any bars. And Omar was a bit more of a confident guy than me. And he's like, fuck it, just follow me. So we go to this bar, this huge lineup. He goes straight to the bouncer. And he's like, the guy's like, hey, you got to get back in line. Omar's like, I don't know, man. Trevor Linden told me to come here and said, just go to the front and say, Trevor's saying we're allowed in here. We're here on a tryout. We're from the AHL team. The guy was like, yeah, okay, sure. Just let us in. So it ended up working.
Oh man, that is priceless. I gotta say, I love downtown Vancouver. I've been there a couple times. It's a nice spot. Pretty eventful stuff going on down there.
Yeah, wasn't there today. It's my only night and day ever in Vancouver was that time. So bathrobes and cutting line on Trevor Linden's name.
That's awesome. And then hey, you take the flight, you fly back east, and then next thing you know, you're in Germany. Obviously, later I got to see kind of the impact that you had on, the specific cities and, the lifestyle that you kind of lived there were, something that I'm forever grateful for, that you brought me over with the team there to kind of document that trip. But, just going back to when you first arrived, how it all kind of played out, first impressions, what were you thinking?
Yeah, I remember, I was going the first team I went to, I had a former teammate on that team, which ended up being such a huge impact because his name was Dominic Auger, and Dom was in his 3rd year, I think, in Germany. And it was this 3rd consecutive year with that team. So by that time, he knew the city really well, and he was dating a German gal. So his German language was getting so much better. So he was such a huge help in that first month of transitioning to a different country, different customs, different way of doing things. So yeah, a lot of small things that you go there, you don't expect. But I remember, I think my first week in my new apartment, I get this knock on my door, and this old lady is looking at me, and she has two bags, and I could tell those are my garbage. I can, because they're kind of clear bags, like the clear yellow and a clear green bag. And she's just yelling at me in German, and I can't understand shit. And I get to practice, and I'm telling my teammates, say, hey man, my neighbor showed up to me with the garbage bag, just yelling at me and stuff like that. And they're like, did you put the glass in the yellow bag, and the cardboard and plastic in the green bag? I was like, oh no, I did the opposite. She's like, that's why she's yelling you. Do recycle the right way. So that was kind of one of my first things. The other thing too was the first time I went to put gas in my car. Right, the pro team gives you a car for the year. I get a nice little kind of crossover minivan car. Yeah, something you'd never see here. But anyways, the first time I go to put some gas, I don't have euros on me, but I have my credit card and my bank card. And I go to put gas, and I go to pay, and this is all I have is these two plastic cards. And the guy looks at me, he's like, no. I'm like, what? I said, yes, this or this. He's like, no. So I had to pay cash. Did not know. So I don't know how to call my team. I don't have a cell phone. The guy didn't want me to leave, so it got really awkward. I finally got the papers inside the car, and I showed a number. He called the dealership, and then they're like, yeah, Canadian guy. Anyways, ended up leaving me and go without paying, and had to bring back some cash to the poor guy. But yeah, those were kind of things that happened that first kind of month. But absolutely loved living in Germany. Very for them, they're pragmatic. Everything has a sense to what they do, and everything is clear. Everything, you recycle the right way, and everything's fine. Yeah, yeah. So had a blast for sure.
So that was your kind of, I guess, first moments of maybe culture shock, I guess.
Yeah, 100% that. And I think it's a classic in Germany. Like, they drink so much like carbonized water. Like you drink it like it's natural water without bubbles. Anyways, one of the first practices, they have all these cases, like these giant cases of bottled water in the dressing room, everywhere. They rarely drink out of the tap. They basically never drink out of the tap. So remember being at practice, and these plastic bottles are lined up on the side of the boards. They're not like hockey bottles. They're just, Evian bottles, but a different company. And we open it, drink it, and there's bubble water during practice. Like, what the fuck is this shit? Spitting it out. I was like, no, this tastes like crap. But by my third year, I was drinking that too. And to this day, I drink a lot of bubble water. That's probably because I live in Germany.
Going into, maybe moments of homesickness, did you experience much of that in Germany? And if you did, how'd you deal with it?
No, I really enjoyed. Yeah, I would say maybe it wasn't homesickness, but my third year in Germany wasn't playing as well. And I'm a coach now, and I will say something that I don't like players that do that, but we were playing a style of play that was not suiting my abilities. So, and as an import, right, every team has max 5 imports. There's a pressure on you to produce. And we were playing this system, and really good system to not give up a lot of scoring chances, but the basics of the system, not to go too deep into it. The centerman has to stay in the offensive zone. The centerman has to stay at the blue line in between the two defensemen. And the two defensemen have a green light to go pinch in whenever they want. And then the center, his job is to replace both Ds if they decide to pinch. Well, if I'm just staying at the blue line, I am basically a third defenseman. So my production wasn't that great on the power play. I wasn't producing much on the power play. So that's on my own shoulders. But my 5-on-5 numbers weren't great. So I was feeling the pressure. And then, when the coach is always meeting you, he's like, hey, what can I do to get you producing more? I was like, I got to get off the blue line, man. I need to go cycle a bit more. I need to get in the zone. And just, I wasn't fighting with him, but we were winning every game, 2-1, 3-2, lowest goals against in the league. We're a top 3 team. but they weren't happy with me because I wasn't generating numbers in offense. Ended up tearing a muscle in my leg, kind of in the hamstring area. Was supposed to be out for 2 to 3 months. Ends up I need a specialist, a sprinting specialist in Germany. He shows me the x-ray. I have a hole this big in my thigh, but he says it's not a big enough muscle that you could probably just start skating, working out again, and you'll be fine. Your other muscle is going to compensate. The team did not believe this. They thought I was lying. They thought the doc was lying. Anyways, but it was true. I felt fine. But they ended up signing somebody from the AHL. They came in, so we were 6 imports for 5 spots. Ended up, being healthy and being ready to play. And they told me, listen, we brought in this guy. We have to play him. So I ended up calling a few old teammates. And one of my old teammates from my first season, he was playing in QMJHL. He said, hey, man, we need an import. We need a playoff push here. Come on over here. Huge pay cut for me, but it ended up being a tremendous decision. I didn't really care about the money. I was making a lot of money anyways. Just wanted to play and enjoy a different experience, and went there, re-signed with that team, and ended up playing my last year with that city. So that's the one, Greels, that we ended up finishing and playing our last game on that Euro trip.
Yeah, quite the atmosphere in that last one, I got to say. That one was a lot of fun. And, the whole half rink, half not covered kind of thing, and the smoking inside and stuff like that.
That's one of the culture shocks when you go to Germany. Yeah. The first team I played for in Kaufbeuren was they had that's why people are allowed to smoke at hockey games. If the 4 walls are closed, you can't smoke. It's one of the main reasons why they keep those 1 wall open. So three out of the 4 teams that I played for had at least one open wall. So it's kind of hard to think about being here in North America, but amazing experiences over there.
Yeah, no, because this is August of 2019 that we were there, right? So it's still going strong. A few darts in between periods, and then periods and everything.
As you saw, a lot of fog at that time of year in those games. Like it's a huge issue, but hey, I guess that's what you get for not having a closed ring.
Yeah, that's the trade-off. Fog on the ice for a dart at intermission.
There you go.
4 teams in 4 years. How'd you adjust each city and moving around frequently? Because a lot of times it's tough to get the ground under your feet when that's happening.
Yeah, exactly. But the cool thing for me is I ended up doing 4 different areas of Germany. So every new team felt like a completely new experience. From my first year being in kind of the Bavaria, Munich area, where it's very picturesque and the mountains are there, and probably the richer part of Germany. And then my second year, I moved more west in the Black Forest area, close to France. The bigger city close to me was Stuttgart. Then my third year, move up probably middle of Germany. Again, that was a white wine, like the Riesling area. Very rich team in my third year. And then my last year, going to QMJHL, that's more the East Germany, where you can still see a bit of the war, the effects of the war on some of the buildings and all that kind of stuff. A bit more of a poorer city, working class. And then how do I adapt? For me, I would just wanted to learn every place that I went. I wanted to learn a bit more. Every year, I took some German lessons. Ended up helping me out tremendously in getting accepted in the team by the German players. Even though I was just a year in each team, I think they felt like I was making an effort of being a part of their country, of their city, that I wanted to be there and learn about everything, that I felt like I was being accepted by the German players and coaches really, really quickly for each team that I went. And some of the teams I would have wished to stay the whole time. It was just, that's minor pro, right? I think my first contract was making 16,000 euros. A team that it's very low budget and just trying to survive. And I had a really good year my first year, getting offered more money, a lot more. So I go to that team. had a decent year my second year, get offered even more money. It's just I was chasing the money back at that point. And that's professional sport too, right? Either you want a longer contract and stability, or if it's a 1 year deal, I'm going to go to the place where I'm going to earn a bit of money.
Well, I mean, that's exactly what you got to do to kind of survive, right? And think about it, because you don't really know when the pro career is going to end, right? And sure enough, 4 years was all that you had, right? So if you didn't chase the money for that 1 year, it might have never came at all.
Yeah, and I still to this day, I had never had a diagnosed concussion throughout my major junior university career. And after my first year in Germany, I get a call from one of my dad's buddies. Hey, Pat, we're having this shinny game. We're short a couple players. Can you come and bring a buddy? He's like, yeah, sure. So I asked my roommate at the time. He was my STFX roommate, and we would sublet in the Sandy Hill area. And so we go and play this game, and puck gets rimmed around the boards. I'm trying to just break it out, and this old guy, and it's my own mistake. Like I wasn't even wearing a half visor. I'm just wearing a helmet. This old guy, he just pinches and his head hits me right in the cheek. I end up passed out on the ice, bleeding from my mouth, my nose. Kind of wake up. My roommate's like, Pat, we got to go. Your face is a mess. So I ended up breaking my cheekbone, a displaced fracture. So my cheek was here. I had a big hole. And a huge concussion out of it. And I still feel to this day that I was a different player after that. Concussions were way easier to get. In that final 2 years, I probably had 6 or 7. I would basically get one every 2 months, and it became unbearable to play that way. And the contract that I was offered for my 5th year was a contract without any medical insurance. So if I would get another one, I'd be on my own financially. So I just couldn't do it.
No, I mean, it makes sense. What's the first thoughts there? Because I mean, obviously that's a scary experience when you're first waking up. Like, are you exactly understanding of like what just happened, or like where's your head at?
I think when you have any type of gruesome injury, I think the look in people's faces kind of says it all. So when I kind of came to my senses and I saw in my roommate's, eyes that something was up, I was feeling pain, and I was touching. When I touched, I could feel something was off with my face. And then when he said, we got to get out of here. So we skate and we go in the dressing room and started getting undressed. And by that time, my head is just throbbing. And I go to see myself in the mirror, and I'm like, holy shit. That hole was just, your face shouldn't look that way anyways. But I remember the pain of the car ride from where we were played like 20 minutes outside of Gatineau, so we were pretty far from the hospital. What pissed me off too is that the next day I was supposed to go to Toronto to a Dave Matthews Band concert, and I was like, fuck, I'm gonna fucking miss it. So I was so mad. That was that. But I think I got surgery that night. They went through my mouth and basically put my cheek back in place. But the next month of just not being able to work out, skate, my head being a mess, I think that was worse than the actual pain of the impact in that one day. The rest was just, I showed up at camp in Germany, was not in shape. It wasn't good. I kind of attribute that bad hit by wasn't even one of my dad's buddies, but it was an old man. Me not wearing a face shield, kind of at a turning point in my pro career. It would have been interesting to see what would have happened if that would not have happened, because by my 4th year, my girlfriend at the time, which is my wife now, she had come to live with me for half a season to kind of see if she liked living over there, because I really enjoyed it. And I was kind of ready if I would stay healthy. I was ready to kind of play it out and maybe become a coach or who start a family over there. So I was kind of seen as a long-term thing, and ends up end up turning a different path, but a great path too. That I quit hockey and went right into being a phys ed teacher and an assistant coach at a high level. And the career path just changed right away.
Yeah, and I guess for what could have happened, but coming back to Germany and getting the reception that you did back in August and seeing how a lot of people still credit you for some great hockey memories. I mean, that's got to be a special moment, no?
Yeah, when you're going across the world to a place that you did not spend that much time, it's pretty neat to see that you had an impact on people. I think I probably attribute that impact more towards my involvement in the community and how I treated people over there, and how I really, dug into being a member of every community that I was over there. And seeing the equipment manager that I had back in the day, and the people over there, brought back some really good memories. Even, for my wife, she came to follow us around that trip. And even for her, like it's bittersweet because we had some tremendous memories of living in a beautiful country with some great people, and learning a lot of stuff.
And now one thing I remember you telling us on that trip, the whole dog thing with the team, was there, am I remembering this correctly? Like one team assigned you guys like each players with their own dog? Because I think, that's the one and only time I've heard that, and I think it's absolutely hilarious.
Yeah. So, the culture in Germany, and it's probably the same for some other countries in Europe. You can bring your dog everywhere you want to bring your dog. And I had bought my dog. It was a black lab, in the off season before my last year at StFX. So my first year in Germany, my dog was in his second year of life. So it was a young dog still. But very quickly I learned that I could just bring my dog everywhere I wanted. Ended up being great friends with my first year equipment manager. And he was like, hey, just bring, his name was Tubi. And the reason, the story behind his name is that the house that I lived at StFX for 4 years with a bunch of teammates, basement, we had three guys, and upstairs it was four guys. So seven of us lived at that house for 4 years. The address was 2 Dolorosa, but it was apartment A and apartment B. I was always in 2B Dolorosa. And if we do a house party, it was like, hey, you guys going to 2B? Yeah, the party happening at 2B. So I named my dog after my house address. So my dog's name is Tubi. So yeah, in Germany, I just started bringing him to practice, and my trainer at the time fell in love with my dog, and he would do everything with him, kept getting treats and sausages and all that. Just next thing you know, I would bring him to games, and he was like, no, don't leave him at your apartment during games. Like, bring him. Well, we're just going to leave him in the equipment room, and I'll give him a couple of treats. And next thing you know, after the fourth home game win, every time you win in Germany, you shake the other team's hand, you salute the crowd, you go in the dressing room, and then if you've played hard enough and the fan club really liked your performance, they will stay and dance and chant until the team comes back on the ice and does some kind of a salute. So by the fourth time this happens, the trainer at the time said, hey, let's let Tubi go on the ice too. I was like, no, let's not do that. And anyways, we let the dog loose, and he became a fan favorite. He would wear our team jersey sometimes, and almost became the team mascot. But anyways, the story is at the end of the year, we end up winning the playdowns, not winning the playoffs, but there's 6 teams that play the playdowns to get eliminated and go to lower division. We win that tournament. And at the end of that final game, they announced the team MVP, team hardest worker, best defenseman, and yada, yada, yada. And when they're announcing the team MVP, and this year's 2001 team MVP, and the announcer pauses, the whole crowd starts chanting my dog's name. And my trainer releases my dog. He goes on the ice, and the crowd's going wild. So I became, for the next 2 years, I became the guy with the dog. So I would coach other teams, and they're like, "Oh, you're the guy with the dog." That's me. So yeah, Doobie followed me everywhere with every team. I go on the ice with the guys. They throw pucks around. So he became a German legend.
That's honestly almost unbelievable. But just knowing the crowds and from what I saw with you, like it's spot on that reaction is what they had
Yeah.
with you. I mean, now just, kind of coming to the end of that pro career and your time in Germany, when you realize that, pro hockey is done for you now, how did you kind of deal with that news? Because I mean, a lot of athletes struggle with trying to figure out next steps in life after that.
Yeah, I was fortunate enough that I had studied something that I knew I could get a job in it pretty quickly. So I knew whenever hockey's over, I'm just going to start teaching, whether it's phys ed or teaching French to English people or English to French people. I knew that I'd probably get a job or a substitute teach till I get something. So that fear was not there. But yes, the other part of being a pro athlete and being in that lifestyle, it took me a while to not dream about it as much. Like, yeah, I would dream a lot of being in that life and then wake up and be like, oh man, I gotta go get up and go teach basketball to kids that want nothing to do with that. But yeah, no, it was, for me, it wasn't a hard transition. I got involved in hockey right away, being an assistant coach at a high level. So, we were on the ice with the midget AAA team every day of the week, 6 days a week, traveling a lot. So I was still in it, not as a player, but as somebody with a pretty big impact right away. So that really helped the transition for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, let's talk about, the workforce and stuff like that. So you taught phys ed at a private school, eh?
Yeah. So my first experience private school. Then when I went with the midget AAA team, I was at a public school, and then went back to that same school when the midget AAA team did not hire me as a head coach. I had told them, listen, if I don't get the head coaching position, I'm going to go back to that private school. It's close to home. Probably going to start a family soon, and I'll start a hockey program over there. Ended up not getting that head coaching job, and then doing that and doing just that. It's great experience, and I still live right, like, I think 2 kilometers away from that school, and hopefully my boys are going to go there once they are of age. It's a great school.
I guess, what do you find? Because I mean, I'm just curious because I've never, obviously, like, I went to a public school in Claremont, but we only got, one option, right? Being a small town. So I mean, what was it like, being a teacher in a private school? Obviously, there's probably more expectations on you as an educator as well.
Well, for me, for this school, it's called Collège Nouvelle Frontière. It's one of, maybe there's more, but it's one of the three prominent ones in Gatineau, so to say. And this one is viewed a bit more as an in between, where it's not as crazy demanding as an old school private school. But the neat thing about this college is that it's the community aspect. It's a very tight knit community that between the teachers, between the kids. I just felt like I was again part of a team. Even though I'm a teacher with students, I felt like the teaching core and the students, we just felt some sort of a pride for the name of the school and what the school did. So it made for a more enjoyable experience. I felt like I had more of an impact than being maybe at a public school where kids are just going to school and they're not really that proud of their school colors and their school name and all that stuff. So no, never felt any pressure, to be honest. Felt more of a sense of pride and a sense of duty towards doing my job and really providing a neat experience for the kids.
And I mean, how do you say that experience kind of prepared you for your first coaching opportunity at the university level? Because it was with uOttawa's women's team as an assistant there.
Yeah, I remember my former STFX teammate Yannick Evola giving me a call and asking me if I was available to help out with their team. I had never coached girls, but I had taught two girls, right? For me, I just felt like it was a different learning experience. And it was the first time that I was being put in a position to coach defensemen. I had never played defense my whole life. The 1 year assistant coach with the midget AAA team, I was in charge of the forwards and the power play. So it was a very neat experience, and being a part of the university culture structure, university level athletes, a tremendous experience. And looking back at it, ended up being a huge asset for me when I was applying for the uOttawa job. Not that I knew everything about uOttawa, but I had experienced it for a full year, being a part of this. And I remember telling Yannick at that time and said, yes, I'll do it, but just for 1 year, because a part of my contract at the private school is I had to take charge of certain sports. So in that transition of the midget AAA year at the public school, I had accepted the job with Yannick at uOttawa with the women's team before I had signed my contract at the private school. So when I signed with the private school, I said, yes, but you have to allow me for 1 year to coach this assistant coach with the women's hockey team. I won't be able to do A, B, C, and D at the private school, but I will start it the year after. So that was the deal. And I stood to my word, and I did that. Starting my second year at that private school, I was in charge of badminton, volleyball, and track and field, and cross country running. So I'd never done any of these things, but I was head of program, hiring coaches, coaching those sports. So a great experience to get out of your comfort zone and learn about different techniques, and which ended up being very, very useful when I became head coach at uOttawa.
And, one thing that has kind of come up a couple times throughout is the ability to, maneuver and, negotiate with your contracts and finding the fit that works well with you and not kind of giving up on certain clauses or things that you really need. I mean, for players going through this now, obviously, sometimes there's agent representation, but what do you think are some really good techniques in that realm of the sport?
I think no matter what, so if it's either sport or life and contracts and stuff like that, for me, I've learned to value certain things more than money, and sort of say, because at the end of the day, if you're happy, if you get what you're looking for and you get out what you want of something, it might be more important to have those things than actually have X amount of dollars extra. So for me, either in the pro deals or contracts of work, always felt like it's important to get what I'm looking for, and not just on a financial side, but on everything that goes around the job, because at the end of the day, a lot of things are more important than money.
And so, I mean, now once you get, I guess, I'll call it your dream job. You can, I assume it is, being the head coach of the University of Ottawa. You're the go-to guy. You're tasked with a big task right away. You got to recruit a full team. Was that an aspect of a challenge that excited you or kind of scared you?
Both. If I'm 100% honest, like I didn't think I was going to get the job, to be honest. I knew that I was qualified, and I knew that I could do the job, but I felt like, I didn't get the midget AAA job because they told me I didn't have enough experience. I didn't get some assistant coaching jobs in the Quebec League because I was being told I did not have enough experience. And at some point I was like, if nobody's going to hire me, I'm never going to get experience. So I kind of went at the interview with that, kind of attacking that right off the hop and saying, I won't allow you guys to use that as an excuse to not hire me. So I went through my strengths and everything. Anyways, the building of a team, the neat thing, and I say this every time, I had the huge luxury of having a year to do it. So I didn't get hired in May, and I had to build a team for August 1st. I had a full calendar year to recruit and not have a team to coach while I was recruiting. So that ended up being a blessing, because I needed the time to find players that were kind of not forgotten, but that might be overlooked by some other programs, because I knew that a lot of the blue chip guys or the household names wouldn't come to uOttawa just because we're starting from scratch and we had the scandal behind us. So I knew I kind of had to get creative in building this team. And it turned out that time ended up being immensely valuable to me building this team.
And so now, the recruit id becomes the recruiter. Was there anything that you kind of took from your own experiences and really applied? Or, I mean, even actively to this day, what are you trying to do in terms of recruitment?
Yeah, 100%. I remember being in the shoes of the person who's being recruited. I remember what was annoying. I remember what was pleasant about certain schools. So I could try to use those. But I know that other people went to STFX with me on totally different reasons. And I look back now at the players that ended up choosing uOttawa and coming to us. Wasn't all for the same reason. Some people knew the city and knew non-athletes that were there, and they had a good experience and wanted to be there. Some other guys came because I was recruiting their teammate and they wanted to come together. There's just so many different reasons. Some came for academic reasons. They really like a certain program at uOttawa, heard great things about it. It's always different, but there's always a reason. So the more you do it, the better I feel you get at it, because there's more and more baggage of how to recruit kids.
And so I kind of want to do something a little bit special, a little bit different right now. So I want to go through that whole recruiting class, and I'm just going to name one of the guys. We'll kind of keep it to the guys who were there from that first year till their graduating year, and we'll just kind of get you to say like what really made that guy special and why you wanted to bring him in. So we'll go in a numerical standpoint and start off with number 4, Jacob Sweeney.
Man, all around player. So I remember watching him play, and he was on the list of the blue chip guys, and I was still doing my homework and calling every single one of them. Not many answered. Sweens answered. Not many answered the second time or accepted that I went to see them play in person and talk after game. So for me, Sweens was our biggest recruit that kind of put us on the map, because I had fellow coaches that coach other teams at the U Sport level, and they called me once we landed Sweens and asked me, how the heck did you do that? I think it's a tribute to Sweens. He took a chance on us. Probably better if you asked him why he chose us, but I think he liked the vibe. He liked the couple of the guys that we were getting, and he understood what we were trying to do, and he saw this as a good challenge.
Yeah, well, Sweens actually did answer that question in his episode, so people can go check that one out too.
There you go. Great plug. Great plug.
Yeah. Hey, sometimes you got to double dip, right?
There you go.
So, I mean, I know you got some great stories with a few of these guys and how you recruited them too. So feel free to go in with that. And the reason why I'm saying that is because, you got a great story with number 5, Matt Dunlop.
Yeah. Hey, one good story before we move on. Like Sweens, I remember doing one trip out to Eastern Canada, and I had talked, I'm not going to name names, but I had talked to all 3 overagers for the Moncton Wildcats. And I told them I'm going to be at this game in Moncton. I'd love to introduce myself in person, because I had been talking on the phone with them. And all 3 are saying, yeah, for sure. Of course, I go there and they get spanked. They get embarrassed. I can't remember against who. And I'm like, holy fuck, these guys aren't going to come up and talk to me after getting shit kicked like that. And sure enough, I'm waiting there. It's dark. There's nobody else there. And like, man, these guys are bailing on me. And Sweens came up, and I was like, man, thanks for coming up, man. Hey, the other 2 guys, I don't think they're coming. He told me, he's like, yeah, I actually felt bad for you. He said it. He's like, probably would not have come for anybody else, but I know you came down here. It's the only time you come. And for me, that said a lot about Sweens, and really appreciated it. Says a lot about the guy. So moving on to Matt Dunlop. Dunny is the first recruit that we ever committed in this kind of rebuild. And we have a nice plaque now in our office of that kind of moment. But I remember I was so young and inexperienced, right? So I'm reading every book. I'm reading everything on the internet on how to recruit and tips. And one of the things that kind of stuck to me is that on recruiting visits, you have to do something that sets you apart from every other recruiting visit. So I was scratching my head. It's like, hey, what could I do? What could I do? It's my first recruiting visit. I got to do something different. and I'm a huge cyclist. I love biking, and I love that the European part when I lived in Germany, that people just bike everywhere. So end up bringing three cruiser bikes to campus. And once I met the Dunlops, Matt and his dad, I said, "Hey, I got a special treat for you guys. I'm going to take you on a bike ride." So I took the Dunnies on a bike ride to Ottawa, and we even went across to Gatineau and had a poutine at a nice sports bar, and had a French waitress. And I remember, both of them being wide-eyed, and this is awesome, got the French culture going. Ended up that it worked out. I think it set us apart, and Matt ended up committing to us, and he was our first commit.
That's awesome. We'll move on. He's currently playing in France. His team actually got a 2-1 win today. Brendan Jacome.
Yeah, Pablo, his teammates like to call him. He was an interesting one. Hey, I will say this anytime that it comes up. Pablo was one of the ones that I went to see at a showcase in Buffalo, and I remember taking notes on him. He was wearing number 26. He was small, kind of looked like me as a player. I was more skilled than I was, but remember looking at him and being like, "Meh, does everything well. It's not flashy. I'll keep tabs on him." Did not call him much. He ended up calling me, and him kind of initiating more in saying, "Hey, I really like Telfer School of Management," and he kind of made me look into him a bit more. And the more I looked into it and talking to his coach, and I remember his coach saying, "You cannot go wrong with this kid. He is a hard worker in the gym, a great family. He's skilled. I can play him offensively, defensively. Cannot go wrong." And his coach, Greg Walters, was a good OHL coach, and I really trusted his opinion, and turned out being one of our next commits. And then, him being a huge part of our successes of junior A guys outplaying a lot of major junior guys. Kind of that was our trademark with our success. So that's the story behind Pablo.
And I guess, the guy who seems to weasel his way into every podcast at some point, fellow Newfoundlander, and another guy, coming from that junior ranks who really outperformed, as he's now the leading franchise assist. That's a tough sentence, but anyway, people understand what I'm trying to say here. Cody Drover.
Yeah, the all-time assist leader for the uOttawa program. Yeah, Cody, he was a part of that trio. We could probably talk of all three together. The DF Commando amigos, or whatever you want to call them. But when I was doing the rounds of the MHL, the Maritime Junior A Hockey League, fell upon this name, JF Danfus, former goalie, NHL pick. We kind of knew each other mutually by name. Hadn't met too much, but ended up building a good rapport with him, with the MHL, and asking him a lot of his opinion on different players throughout the league. But he kept bringing me back to his three guys in Cody Drover, Matthew Newcomb, and Mike Poirier. And he kept telling me, "Pat, if you can land those guys, you're all set." Just the type of people they are, winner, people that love hockey, and good, genuine people that will galvanize your dressing room. So the more I looked into them, I ended up asking Danny Flynn, because all three had a bit of a history with the Moncton Wildcats. And Danny Flynn knew a lot about them and their families. Just ended up recruiting all three. And all three are totally different personalities. Of course, Cody Drover being the newfie, the jack of all trades. He gets along with everybody. Can be very quiet at times when not in his element. But once he is in his element, he's the guy that just doesn't shut up. So ended up being, all-time assist leader by his playmaking capabilities, his ability to read the play and then pass the puck on his on his strong side and on his back end. Just tremendous. And huge reason for our success. Then we can jump right into Mike Poirier. He ended up winning the Defenseman of the Year that year in the MHL. Just solid all around. He was I I don't know, he probably played 30 to 35 minutes a game over there. I could see him running a power play with us maybe at the start. Ended up doing a lot of these things. Ended up being a top 4D for us. A guy, again, that outplayed a lot of major junior defensemen once he got here with us. Ended up signing a pro contract in France. Tremendous guy. Worst body in the league, probably. Funny story about him is that, you know, he played so many minutes in the MHL, and first year, Sully, our D coach, is like, Mikey, you kill penalties? He's like, no, I don't kill penalties. Don't do that. It's like, well, okay, so we get the other guys to kill penalties. And we find out that Mikey doesn't wear a jock when he plays. And we're like, what? You're playing junior hockey and university hockey, you don't wear a jock? Like, that doesn't make any sense. Ended up starting to wear one later in his GG career, but maybe his first 2 years did not wear one. Explains why he did not kill penalties and wasn't going to block any shots. But yeah, amazing guy. And then finally going to Matthew Newcomb. Hey, there's not every guy that kind of gets his jersey retired in his junior rink the year that he leaves that junior franchise. That means kid left a mark on the program. So he did that. He just that with us. This guy will bring any team together. He will lead the team to wins, to good parties, to fun, to get serious when it's time to get serious. Nukes is one of a kind. High skill, good hockey sense. High point total in the MHL, and he had to kind of accept that he would not play as much as an offensive role as the years went on with our program. We committed some more guys, and he never, ever complained from being on the first line at times in his first year to moving down the lineup in his fourth year on a championship team. He accepted it any day, always, straight face. And I'm there for the team, coach. I'll do anything. So that Commando trio, they won in junior and they won in university hockey. I'm not surprised.
Yeah, no, that three, man, they provided a lot of laughs on those bus rides, and it was a real pleasure getting to know all three of those guys. Sure. Marco Zano.
Yeah, Marco. So Marco was he's one of those guys that this happens at the pro ranks in NHL, that teams are going to go see one person to scout a person for draft purposes, and they end up seeing the teammate or the opponent, and like, man, I've seen this guy once. Okay, seems I'm kind of see player A, but this player B is standing out every time. So for me, Marco was that. I went to see Jacob Hanlon and Matt Dunlop a lot, and at the showcase as well. And I kept noticing his anno. Sometimes not for the right reasons. He's just a in-your-face type of guy, and he might slash the goalie and that kind of stuff. And he's always yapping around, but has a good shot, good scoring touch, and he knows where to go in all three zones. And for me, I felt like this would be the ultimate depth guy. And he turned out exactly that. Hardworking team guy, intense, very smart, and people hate to play against him. So I figured maybe we're not going to win a lot of games, but people are not going to like to play against us. And Marco was one of those guys.
He just passed off the captaincy, Quinn O'Brien.
Yeah, Obi was an interesting story to recruit, because he's obviously a local kid that I knew about. I had never met him in person, but seen him play a lot, knew the name, knew about his family. And then the recruiting process, starts to happen. He had injury woes in his overage year. I think he was the captain with Charlottetown, and had a surgery on his hand, ended up not playing the last part of his overage year. Talking to him more once he got injured and came back closer to home. But he was kind of set and going to UQTR to 12. Yeah. And one of the things is that his long-term girlfriend that he had been dating since maybe he was born, but she's from here, but she was accepted in her study program in 12. Yeah. So they had been apart for a long time. They wanted to get closer to each other. And she was not yet accepted at uOttawa. So I think they were just, no matter what, they were going to go to the same school. Ended up, she got in occupational therapy, I think. I think she got into the second round or third round of admissions at uOttawa. And when that happened, Quinn called me back, said, "Hey, Pat, Erica got in. If there's still a spot, I'd love to come. It's easier for me in my hometown." And he hadn't signed any official papers at UQTR, so we made sure about that and ended up coming over here. And, we call him the Diesel for a reason. Quinn O'Brien, born and raised on a farm with 4 brothers. Man, what a worker. 4 out of 4 years, he won our fitness testing. Hardest working guy I've ever met. Even hard worker, like just he has a business with his brothers. He works at a bank and does hockey school and he works out. Like, just, I don't know when that guy sleeps, but he was very well respected by the players and by the staff. And he had a good knack of being able to, push the guys when it was time, but also have fun with the guys when it was time.
Another guy who's, a great guy to have around the locker room currently, living it up in Italy, going with that pro dream as well, Mark Beckstead.
Yeah, Bexy, I think Bexy was our first major junior commit. Again, he was a local guy, and we were pumped to get him because for us, we saw him as a power forward, a guy that dropped the gloves every now and then in the queue, but had some offensive output, some skill. So we felt like that was a good mix. A pure Anglophone too. So for me, like every time I could get an Anglophone, I was pretty pumped because my connections outside of the Quebec League wasn't that great. But getting Mark, a player in the Quebec League, but an Anglophone that's from the Ottawa region, I was really, really happy. And I knew that he was quite good buddies with Anthony Brodeur. So that was kind of going to happen at the same time. So Bexy, what an interesting guy, quirky personality, guy will do anything for his teammates, step up for them. He'll carry them. He'll be there for them. And then, he was a huge part of our style of play of being an intense in-your-face type of team that could still score and be dangerous offensively.
Mm-hmm. And he was able to bring some East Coast experience to the lineup too, because he had a unique situation where he got to have that exposure.
Yeah, 100%. I won't lie to you that I got nervous when he did it because he's allowed to do it, right? The rules provide you that once you're done your overage year, you can go play pro right up until basically January 1st of the next year. So I saw him as a big ticket as a Jacob Sweeney and a couple of the other guys. And when he signed a kind of a tentative contract to go play in the East Coast, I was like, yeah, I hope he comes back. Fortunately for us, he did end up coming back.
And you mentioned about him a little bit before, Jacob Hanlon.
Yeah, Hanno. The recruiting with him went exactly the way Hanno is. So I saw him at the again at the same showcase in Buffalo, where all the Toronto Junior A teams they all meet in Buffalo and they play for 3 straight days. They play a lot of games, so it's a great. I got to see so many hockey players that 3 days, and Hanno was one of them. And that team, he played for the Kingston Canadians. They had a couple of guys that were destined to go play NCAA, and Hanno was kind of falling in between, where he was getting some interest to go NCAA Division I, and a lot of interest for D3, and then some Canadian schools. So after. That was kind of a learning process for me. The first time I went to that showcase, you got the Princetons, the Boston University, all the big schools are there. As soon as the game ends, all the coaches or recruiters, they just go and stand outside of the dressing rooms. And it's basically a line, and the coaches come out and say, "Hey, who do you want to talk to?" And guys are flagging, players. And I ask, and I speak to Jacob Hanlon, and he comes out. And polite as you can imagine, hey, mister, say, thanks for coming to see me play. Right now I'm focused on NCAA. U Sports is maybe on my radar, but I'm very sorry. I don't want to. He was so respectful. He was almost apologizing to me, but he was like, I want to go NCAA. But if that doesn't work out, I do want to go play university hockey in Canada. So that door window was open. But just remember him being so polite and genuine that I was like, hey, I got to keep tabs on this guy. And kept reaching out. And Kingston was a closer city for me to go see that Toronto Junior A League. So I ended up going to see quite a few games. And the night that we kind of committed him, he had gotten a puck in the mouth, so he was playing with a full face on. He ended up scoring 3 goals against Matt Dunlop and Marco Ozzano, and he played lights out. So I was really happy to get him. He was one of those players that I was watching play, and I was like, if he was in the Quebec League, he'd be producing right now at a point-a-game rate, and everybody would be on this guy. So I was quietly intense on Jacob Hanlon. I wanted him to commit to us because I knew this guy was legit, and turned out to be exactly that.
And now another legit guy. I mean, program leader in goals, Kevin Domain, Dingo.
Dingo, yeah, what a story. This story is kind of, getting around now in the process of recruiting Dingo. So he moved around. He's kind of, I could see why now that he played for us. I could see why he was bouncing around a bit, just because I think if Dingo's not in the right situation for him, he will not be at his best. He will, he needs to be in a good comfort zone, feel appreciated, and feel used the right way for him to excel. And, he, being a French Quebec guy, ended up in the Alberta Junior A Hockey League. And while I was scouting those games online, I ended up calling their coach. They had a couple interesting guys on their team, a couple guys that had played 3 full years in the Western Hockey League that were now overagers. And I'm talking to this coach, and he's like, yeah, this guy's good. Yeah, this guy's good. And about the 5th name, Dingo comes up, and I like, what about Kevin Domain? And the coach said, I was assistant coach for 4 or 5 years at the U Sport level, and Kevin is the most ready player I have to play at the U Sports level. So I was like, sure, okay. And he's like, I use him at the center position. He's a 2-way guy, good skater, good shot. I was like, okay, fair enough. Ends up being one of our later commitments because of academic reasons, and Concordia was in the picture, and just wasn't a smooth process, but finally ended up, deciding to come to us. And man, just luck. To be honest, it's just luck the way it happened. Ends up being on our team within the first month. We did not have much depth in scoring, and I could see that he could shoot. And I had him at center at the beginning, and then it wasn't too long before I started just putting on the wing and just shoot the puck. And the rest is history. Probably the guy in a couple of years, 10 years from now, will have his jersey hanging in our rink. Unfortunately, COVID kind of, stopped the fact that I think he was a goal short or 2 of having the OUA all-time record. So let's just say he played 1 year here, an extra year. At the rate that he scored, he would have scored at least 10 goals. He would have beaten the record by quite a few. So unfortunate, but he's a legend.
And a guy who was first recruited for, more of a defensive forward kind of style, eh?
Yeah, not defensive, but I felt like he was going to be a 2-way guy that could bring some offense, but could also be responsible. And I always liked hearing that, because when I was building the team from scratch, I was like, I just need a team that will compete. Might lose a lot, but if I have guys that are responsible in both zones, but I had Dingo for 4 years, almost 5 years, and I don't know about him being a 2-way guy, if we're being honest here. So I don't know if it's my style of coaching that developed that in him, but but I think he thrived with that responsibility and a bit of that leash of saying, yeah, coach has my back here. If I cheat a bit, I know when to pick my spots. But I knew when he was exaggerating a bit more. We had enough mutual respect that I knew when to tell him, and he knew when to kind of tone it down.
Antoine Poulette.
Poulette was an interesting guy. I mean, he had some major junior background, and when I was recruiting in the junior AAA, the equivalent of junior A in Canada, but in Quebec they call it junior AAA, right? The Quebecers always want to be different. yeah, when I was looking at that league, I was going to see some games, and this guy would stand out so much. Powerful skater, powerful shot. Quebec League played a lot of games on defense, so his numbers weren't great. And the coaching staff in Baie-Comeau said we wanted to bring him back at training camp for his overage year as a defenseman, and Pouliot wanted to be a full-time forward. So just decided to go, sorry, not his overage year, his 19-year-old year. So he just decided, no, I want to play forward and develop as a forward. Ended up scoring 50-something goals in the junior AAA rank. But he was a 19-year-old. He was not a 20-year-old. But he was a tremendous student, finished his CEGEP at 19 years old. And that's a feat on its own. Like I don't know if people understand how hard CEGEP is. For a lot of us, for me, including me, CEGEP was way harder than university. And he had a crazy average, got accepted in the engineering program, and ended up being a versatile player for us. Probably, he would say that he should have played more down the line. Could have been. Just ended up being a squeeze from the depth that we had. But remember our third year, we had a lot of injuries on our back end. And of course, who do we come knocking on his door and say, Pooh, can you play D? He's like, yep, I'm great at D. He ended up playing defense, and he was amazing. He kept looking at Sully like, I'm great. Told you I'm great. So yeah, he ended up, helping us have that all-time record season because there was a 5-game stretch there where we had 4 healthy D, and Pouliot was our 5th guy, and he played huge minutes. So at times he was out of our lineup, but a good player that was out of our lineup as a healthy scratch. And he's a team guy, always pushed us coaching staff in him wanting more and wanting reasons why he wasn't in. So we didn't mind that because it showed us that he cared and he wanted to play.
Connor Sills.
Silsey, he's one of the guys that, to be honest, that I did not have to work much to get him. Silsey ended up, talking to him a few times. Then he said, can I come on a recruiting trip? I said, yeah, we work it around, and he comes down, visits, and then it just happened. I remember not knowing much about him as a player, haven't seen him play much. One of my former STFX teammates, Troy Smith, was a coach in the OHL and talked to him. And he's like, man, every guy in the league is scared of this guy. So he's like, you're going to get a fighter, but he's going to be useful to you. And I felt like we didn't have that much size. And again, my mentality is that, hey, if you're going to beat us, you're not going to like playing against us. So I was like, let's take this guy. Ends up that Silsey is quite skilled. End up scoring some big goals for us, scoring quite a bit for a guy that was basically on our 3rd line for his 4-year career. Tremendous lad, just a throwback, tough guy. He brought some respect, and other teams did not like playing against him. Brought an edge, important to have when we're playing against the Carleton Ravens and some of the smaller teams too. That he could impose his physicality. So huge part of our run. Big rig Sills.
He's another guy playing in France now, Adam Beveridge.
Yeah, Bevy was in our backyard. He played in the CCHL in Ottawa. Remember, watching a lot of games. That was probably one of my easiest leagues to follow, just because they played every Tuesday or Wednesday at a decent time, and I got to see a lot of their games. And remember Bevy being obviously him wanting to go the NCAA route, so that process dragged on a bit. But then I think when he finally, said, okay, the offers aren't coming, I'm going to go U Sports. I remember the knack for him was that he didn't have good speed for a big guy. And I was like, yeah, do I take him? People say he doesn't have much speed. I said, I'm watching him. I was like, I don't notice his lack of speed that much, but I don't think he's that fast. I agree. Ended up, we take him, and he came into camp in tremendous shape. Built like a bodybuilder, beach body type of guy. But man, can he skate. So he's a powerful skater, not a fluid skater, but one of our most powerful skaters, strong, Again, he was very important for us in critical moments against physical teams and big teams. Bevy could skate with him and wouldn't get pushed around. So, and of being an important part of our depth down the road. A good local guy.
And now we'll do a little switch with positions and focus on goaltending for a little bit here now. Graham Hunt.
Yeah, Huntsy was one of the ones where connections ended up helping out. So my former coach, Danny Flynn, when I was talking to him about the Maritime kids and all that, and he was asking me, who you got in nets, I was like, well, I'm talking to this goalie. I was talking to so many goalies, and not many wanted to come to us. And I think a lot of the thinking was that we were going to get spanked all the time. So obviously a lot of goals against us doesn't look good on a resume. So a lot of the better resume goalies did not give us time of day and ended up not choosing us. And then, we were talking to a lot of goalies, and Huntsy's name kept coming back. And it was through an old connection with my former coach that he put Huntsy on the radar. And we just liked his calmness, his poise. A guy that used he wasn't a 6'5" goalie, but used his whole height as a goalie to take as much room. Cool as a cucumber. Ended up being our American commitment.
And now the next one also has a little bit of American background as well. Being that dual citizen with, his last name, people will know that his father kept him in New Jersey for a while. Anthony Brodeur.
Yeah, Brody was one of the ones where it's kind of a group commitment, right? Him with a couple of guys that he knew. So with Bexy and Sweens, they all kind of gravitated towards each other, and conversation wasn't too long. And once a couple of guys started committing, Brody came on board. And just remember talking to, so he had played with a few teams in the Quebec League. So I had some good touch points to be able to call them. And everybody said the exact same thing. Tremendous athlete, great competitor, will be a good goalie for a long time just because of his athleticism. And it turned out to be exactly that. Could not have two more different style goalies in Brody and Huntsy, but ended up working tremendously. In I think in our third year, they led our league in goals against as a pair. And we pretty much split the whole way. Half and half. Whoever was doing well got the net. Even playoffs, they each got some playoff action. So important parts of our team throughout the 4-year span. And
last but certainly not least, John Deacon.
Yeah, Deeks. So he's from that MHL league, the Maritime Junior League. His coach was Nick Greeno, our former opponent of mine. Quite the character. Remember talking to him and saying, yeah, Deeks can do it all. Played center, played the wing, skill guy, playmaker, but most of all, tremendous team guy. And he would be exactly that. You ask anybody that was around our program, they might say, oh, yeah, Deeks, remember the smile, remember the personality. The boys just loved him. We loved him tremendously, too, for accepting to kind of get a diminished role from year to year. And remember, true testament to him at the exit meetings every year. We were like, Deeks, we've committed this guy, he's coming into the lineup. That's going to push you maybe out of the lineup. You'll have to compete for some minutes, and might be tough to get you in. Just want to lay it out for you. Every time it's like, no, I understand, coach. This is part of being a team, part of being a winning culture. And he always put the team ahead of his own personal needs. And he was tremendously appreciated by everybody for kind of accepting that. And that goes a long way. I'll tell you that. If you have guys that are depth and are healthy scratches that are pulling the wrong way all the time, because it's probably impossible for them to always be happy about it. And it's human nature. But for those guys, the couple of guys that we named there, that the first year they played a lot, but by the fourth year they weren't playing much. If you don't have these type of people, you're never going to win. ever. It's just going to kill your culture. And these guys are always team guys, and they're as important as the people that are scoring goals.
No, 100%. Now you got your team. You're going into a season, no expectations. Like you said, a bunch of times people thought you were going to get spanked. It didn't really happen. You guys came around, made the playoffs. Take me through that first year, and then obviously moving through the progression where now you finally have expectations to, outdo yourself from what you did last year. And when that's, winning the regular season, that's a big difference in just a few years.
Yeah, I remember that first year where we started playing well right off the hop in exhibition play. We had a couple of games. We had a game against UQTR. We did well. We played against they called them the Binghamton Senators, but really was mostly their East Coast Hockey League team. But yeah, there was still a few guys that ended up being in the NHL the year after that. But we even saw, like, just in preseason that, man, we can play. It didn't translate that well to our first month of the season, probably because maybe we were too gung-ho in the preseason and we thought everything would be easy in season. But we finally had that first convincing win against RMC at home. Things started turning around right after that. And then we ended up being the hottest team in Canada, from the last couple of games before Christmas. And then the start of second half, we went on a tear. And I remember one game coming back in the dressing room, a home game against UQTR, and we beat them. And it wasn't a 3-2. They have 45 shots, we have 25. It was like, I can't remember, a 5-3 win, but we dominated in shots, we dominated in hits, we were just all over them. And the players always stay back and kind of salute the crowd. So the coaches are often the first people in the dressing room. And I remember being, you remember our dressing room. I'm just right after our rink board where I drop the plays, and I'm just standing there. So every guy kind of has to go by me. And, I think I had 7 guys look at me like, what the fuck's going on, coach? Like, we're beating everybody, we're dominating. And I was the same way. I was like, I don't know what's going on. Like, what is this? So yeah, I think we surprised a lot of teams by our work ethic. The players bought in so well in everything that we tried. And we tried different systems. We didn't, right? I have 25 new guys. I don't know if they're going to play well in a 1-3-1 forecheck or a 2-1-2 forecheck. I don't know. Until you try them, you don't know what the strengths of your lineup is. And we started to figure out what our roster was and what our best style play was. And once it started going, it was pretty neat to see this team. And we ended up finishing tied, I think, with 3 good teams. Like, I think it was Carleton and UQTR. We were tied in the standings with them. Now the tiebreakers made us finish 5th or 6th, but we were tied. We could have been 3rd or 4th in our first year. And I wasn't even, my guesstimation at the start of the year, like, maybe let's try and finish 8th to make playoffs here and have X amount of wins. So, yeah, even that first round of playoffs against Queens, we beat them game 2 in overtime. Newcomb scores, forced game 3 at Queens, and felt like we outplayed them at Queens. And I remember just a crappy little goal to off a face-off, short side, went in, kind of a surprise goal, and that ended up being a game winner in a 1-goal game. But I knew we were going to recruit a bit better to add to our weaknesses, and we were, going to be a dangerous team, and turned out to be exactly that in year 2, 3, and 4.
So now, I want to tell a little story about you, because one thing that I've admired, watching you as a coach is you very much, keep everybody, whether it's players, staff, all at a high level, and you do a lot for them. So for me, when I hopped on in the winter semester there, February, my grandfather had passed, and, I decided to make the decision to, after talking with my dad, that, okay, you know what, we're in a playoff run, there's a lot going on, I'll stay here and I'll write a statement and just kind of have that read at the funeral, right? And for me, that was the first time that I ever really did anything like that. And, we had just finished up against a game against Ontario Tech, and we were on the bus, and I asked you if you, could read it for me and kind of go over and, take a look at it after a big playoff game in a series. And you took the time to do that and give me your feedback on it, which is something that I, greatly appreciate. And I've seen you, not exact examples like that, but I've seen you do other gestures in the same realm for, not only your players, but your support staff and stuff like that. Like first of all, thank you, but what really do you attest that trait from?
I think it's a family trait, just to go above and beyond for anybody. I think it's just the way I was raised, and I'm so fortunate that like my dad's family is all here in Ottawa Gatineau. My mom's family is all here in Ottawa Gatineau. So I was raised by, yes, not only my mom and dad, but by a huge group of people. And a lot of bigger families, there's always some infighting, and some uncles aren't talking to some aunts anymore. Not me. Like both of my families on both sides are still all talking to each other. They still all stand each other, and I still all spend a lot of time with each other. But I think being raised in that type of atmosphere, that you're not alone in this world. For groups to work together, there needs to be some people that follow. There needs to be some people that lead. There definitely needs people that care for each other and do a lot of things for each other. And but I always said my mentality is that I want to treat people the way I would like to get treated. And I would like people to help me when I'm hurting, when I need something. A lot of times, I think humanly, we don't necessarily want to do certain things, but then if you really think about it, if it's the good thing to do, just do the good thing, and then life will pay you back. So I always tell my kids this, like, they got to remember this phrase, because I must be telling them at least twice, if not 5 times a day. If you do good things will happen. I say it in French. It's fait des bonnes choses, tu vas avoir des bonnes choses. I say it all the time. I think at this young age, my kids think that they're going to get chocolate if they do good things, but I think it's the true thing in life, right? If you do good things to people, then it comes back. People will respect you, and people want to help you out, and it's a mutual thing, I think.
No, 100%. I think it's great advice. I mean, kind of wrap this session up, because I think we've been going for about 2 hours now.
It's been great, man. You're well prepared. Like it's probably the 5th time I've done one of these, and you're the most well prepared person. Yeah, we have a personal relationship, but you remember some things that I just talked about at certain points, and you researched it. So you're a young guy, but you're a pro, Greels.
Hey, I appreciate that. I mean, hey, what's next for the GGs? Obviously, you almost had to do that recruitment over again. You're recruiting during COVID. You're trying to practice during COVID and get ready for whenever there is a season.
Yeah, what's next is still a lot of uncertainty, but what is certain is that whenever we start playing again, we're going to have a great team. Like, I'm so pumped of these recruits that we have in here right now, and the ones that we're recruiting currently. Never had this strength of recruiting power that we have right now, and that's a testament to the guys that we just talked about in the prior portion of this cast here. I'm excited about the future. I mean, what we were so close. So when you have a bit of a taste of something, you want the whole thing. So can't wait to get back at it, and can't wait to win it for all the guys that were so close to win it. And the huge alumni that we have. Our programs started in the 1800s. It's crazy, and we talk to alumni quite often, and they're so proud of the way things have been done here in the past couple of years, and want to really get the name on the cup there.
Yeah, I can't wait for that moment, because I know for sure it's going to happen. Coach, I mean, this is the part of the podcast where, I hand the show over to you. So it's your show. You can chat about whatever you want. I know we've basically gone through anything. I don't even know if there's much left to talk about, but life lesson, childhood story, really, whatever, show's yours.
I don't know, though. I think a big part of me is what happened to my family. I think, don't want to finish it with a downer, but, at some point in my life, in my family's life, I lost my brother to suicide. And, often people say, hey, if you have something, reach out. It's not always that. And my brother reached out often, and we tried to get him some care, and unfortunately misdiagnosed a few times. That I think the last diagnosis that he got was bipolarism, and I think that if he would have had that diagnosis earlier in his life, probably would have been more comfortable in dealing with. So if one message is for me is that I do this podcast and I look like I've had the perfect life and stuff like that. No, we all have a struggle somewhere. Anybody listening to this cast will go through something, or a family member or a close friend will go through something at some point. So be there for each other. Sometimes there's more need than just talking, but talking is one starting point. So suicide prevention is a big one for me. And last but not least, excited for the future for you, Greels. You've been doing great work. You're a worker. Really appreciate everything that you did with our team, and excited for your future. So thanks for having me on.
Hey, thank you. And I mean, I think that's a real important message to leave off on as well. All right, Coach, I'll let you go. You've been more than generous with your time. Thanks again. All right, that's it for this week. Thanks so much for watching and liking and commenting and doing all that fun stuff. Guys, leave us a review if you're enjoying these. We're on TikTok now also. Like Greels Reels has like 60,000 views on TikTok. I'm pretty impressed by that and really happy with that response. So, yeah, check us out on all our social medias, at Greels Reels. And I mean, hey, I'm just so grateful for everybody who's listening into this show. All right, in the meantime, stay best kind.